As a cricket-loving nation, we all know the importance of toss, don't we? So winning the toss is a matter of chance, but what we do post that is a matter of choice. Winning the toss is not in one's control, but how we deal with that is definitely in one's control, and that's where mindset plays a critical role. Now, life isn't any different. I would like to illustrate this by sharing 3 incidents from my life, which has shaped me into who I am today, and how mindset played a critical role in that when I dealt with those 3 incidents. So the first incident was when I was 15 years old and I finished my 10th standard. I used to be in the top 20% in the class, but my 10th standard result were a shocker. It was surprisingly much lower than what was anticipated, and little did I know about the possibility of reevaluation there. So I wanted to take up science and become an engineer, but my applications got rejected at several places. I later moved to Chennai, where the competition was even more immense. And again, the same thing happened. My applications got rejected in about 8 schools. It was in the 9th school, again, same result. My application got rejected. But I did something different here. So what did I do? So I challenged the principal's remarks, and I negotiated hard, and I requested her to let me appear for the entrance examination. She finally obliged, and I emerged as a topper, and I was given an entry into the science stream. 2 years later, I passed out of the school with the most deserving student award and made the principal proud of her decision. The second incident is when I graduated from my engineering school, which is one of the premier institutes in India, and I had to relocate to Calcutta due to family reasons. Apart from the recession then, the market dynamics or the job opportunities in that part of the country was not good. You might say it's still not good, but yeah, that's the reality. So I struggled to find my first job. While I had no control on the market dynamics, I was trying to do everything possible to land my first job. So in fact, I picked up a telephone directory. For most of you may not be aware, telephone directory used to be such a thick book of maybe thousands of pages. So I picked up a few company names and started doing a cold calling. So it was only the 73rd respondent who gave me a listening, but he didn't have a job opportunity. But at the end of the conversation, he said, I would like to meet you if you're available. I had nothing else to do then, so I just landed up the next day to meet him. We had a good conversation. He asked me to solve a couple of problems. And guess what? I landed in my first job, which was through a cold calling, even though the pay that I got was 1/5 of what my peers were getting then. And it was only when I got the offer letter, I realized I had spoken to the CEO of the company over the call. And it was during my exit that he revealed that he offered me the job because of my ownership mindset, even though he did not have a requirement then. So in retrospect, this incident actually taught me a lot, and I still reap the benefits of that. The third incident was about 14 years back, when my dad, who never had any ailment in his life, had a brain hemorrhage due to an unfortunate incident after an angiogram. The doctor said it's extremely rare for somebody to have this and felt he may not survive beyond 48 hours. He was in a state of coma for 4 months, and he survived for 4 years. But he had lost his memory, and he was like a second kid to me. So these 4 years tested me and my family members in all aspects. But it also transformed me into a much stronger and a wiser individual. So all these 3 incidents threw me out of my comfort zone, and looks like I was exposed to the VUCA world much before the term became much popular. Now, life does not always happen the way we want. And it's only a mindset that determines how do we navigate through those situations. While in retrospect, when I look at those 3 incidents of my life, I consider them as character building opportunities. They really built my character. But at that point in time, I just looked at them as mere life incidents without labeling them as a challenge or an opportunity. I strongly believe that the label you attach to situations in life has a significant impact in the way you deal with them. One of the ways I like to learn is by consciously reflecting on my life experiences. Now, the brain is learning all the time, whether you want it or not. But conscious learning actually helps it to be more constructive, and it helps you shape the mindset in a much better way. Now, during these situations, I typically asked myself these 4 questions. So what are these 4 questions? The first one, did I take responsibility for the situation? Did I realize the positives? Because there's always 2 sides to the coin. Did I do everything possible? And the last and the most important thing is, did I do it the best way possible? It's just not about doing things one after the other, but are we doing the right way? So this introspection helps me a lot in terms of dealing with those situations. Now, I always, based on this way of learning, I looked at what are those attributes which help me deal with these situations. And I figured out there are 3 key attributes which help me. And I sort of package that in a way which is easy for you to remember as well. So I call it as the 3 A's. So what are those 3 A's? The first one is attitude. Now, attitude is a very broad term. We all know that is very important. But I would like to touch upon 2 aspects of attitude which is very, very important. The first one is taking responsibility, or responsibility as a term. Now, when I ask people to define the term responsibility, the typical responses that I get is to close the task that has been taken, or to ensure that whatever you have committed gets closed, so on and so forth. Now, all these are valid responses. What I would like to do is to broaden your perspective on this term responsibility, and I'm going to throw a hypothetical situation to all of you. So you're all seated in this beautiful auditorium, and I tell you, there is a stray dog that got hit by a car on Brigade Road in Bangalore. And I ask you, maybe a show of hands, are you responsible for that? And what would you do? I've asked these questions to hundreds of people. And the blatant response that I get is no. And some people actually give a scary look as well. What kind of a stupid question is this? I'm here in a different place, so how am I even responsible for that? So hold on with that thought, nothing wrong with it. What I would like to invite you to do now is, for a moment, just assume that you're responsible for that incident. I'm just reiterating that. Just assume that you're responsible for that situation. What would you do? If I ask you this question, the typical responses that I get is, I would attend to the stray dog. I would take the stray dog to the vet. I would probably ensure that stray dogs are put up in a safe shelter. Or I would call a Coupa or whatever it is. So you see there are a lot of actions that comes out of it, right? Now, what is the difference? Do you realize there is a shift, significant shift in the mindset? In the first scenario, where you felt you are absolutely not connected with that event, what happened? There was no actions, so it's status quo. But in the second scenario, where I request you to just assume responsibility, you're not even taking responsibility, just assume responsibility, you had a lot of actions that emerged. Now, actions obviously leads to progress as well. Now, imagine if you're taking responsibility in your life, how does it help? When you take responsibility in your life, you take charge of your life and the situation. If I connect back to my stories, if I had not taken charge, I had enough reasons. The recession was on, the job market was very bad. I had enough reasons to stay put. It's because I went beyond those reasons is because of which I ended up in my first job. So the summary of that is, when you take responsibilities or responsibility, there is no blame, no excuses, only actions. That's the first aspect which I want to talk about. The second aspect within attitude is courage. It's very important that you stand for yourself, and of course, you stand for others as well, but most importantly, stand for yourself. Now, when I went through this admission process, if I had not gathered the courage to challenge the principal and request her to let me appear for the entrance exam, I probably wouldn't have landed up in my science stream. I would have been a different person today. So what I strongly believe is, and I follow that as well, is to ask and get a no rather than assuming a no and not even asking for it. Because when you ask, there is some possibility that you might get a yes, right? So let's not assume a no. So those are the two aspects which I want to cover as part of the attitude. The second one is appreciation. I know everybody loves to get appreciated. But what I want to touch upon is the concept of conscious appreciation. Consciously, can you look for things to be appreciative of? Because there's a significant difference between these two. So the fact that you're all sitting here and I'm standing here talking, I'm still breathing, often we take it for granted. When my dad went through that thing for 4 months, he was in a coma, is when I realized a winking of eyes probably has some 200 process which runs in the background for you to wink once. We just take it for granted. So when you do this conscious appreciation, it really gets you to the next level. And in case, when you deal with such situations, you might have a thing about why me syndrome, right? And one of the stories which has stuck with me is of this wonderful tennis player, Arthur Ashe. I don't know how many of you have heard about that. So Arthur Ashe, when he was diagnosed with AIDS, because he was transfused of blood during his heart surgery, which was infected. So unfortunately, he had AIDS. And when the media reached out to him and asked, did he not feel why me? And the answer was awesome. He said there are about 50 million kids who start playing tennis. There's only 50 who gets to the Grand Slam. 5,000 gets to the Grand Slam, 50 to the Wimbledon, 4 to the semis, 2 to the finals. And when I lifted the cup with joy, I did not look up to the God and said, why me? So in this moment of sad or sorrow, why should I ask that? So that's the thing about conscious appreciation. That's how it really helps you. And what is the last thing? Now, why attitude is very important, appreciation is very important, but you may not have the progress without the last one, which is actions. And what kind of actions? It's conscious and consistent action is something which will really help you. Now, we talked about this 3 A's. So why is this 3 A's so important? What will it do to you? It's not a magic pill. Obviously, you need to work on that. But what it does to you is this. The attitude puts the onus on you to deal with the situation. Appreciation keeps you positive irrespective of the situation. And actions thrust you to deal powerfully with the situation. Now, this is a mantra I would request all of you to just make a note. Apply that in your life. And how would this help? Would just knowing the 3 A's formula help? The answer is, may not be. I wouldn't say no, but may not be. Because in today's world, people talk that knowledge is power. But knowledge is it really power? Knowledge is potential power. It's only when you apply it becomes power. Similarly, whatever you're learning through the 3 A's, unless you apply that, you won't get the benefits. So I use this formula called LAB, L-A-B, which is learnings, actions, and benefits. So when you use the LAB formula, which will actually take you to the 4th A. And the 4th A is what? It's accomplishment. So when you follow the 3 A's process, it will lead to the 4th A. And the most important thing is when you use this 3 A formula, because right at the center, if you look at it, is the conscious appreciation. And that is what will make you feel accomplished. There is a huge difference between being accomplished and feeling accomplished. I did not know that for a long time, and I thank my wife for that. She kept on saying, okay, you did engineering from a premier institute, management from a premier institute, but somewhere I felt I was lacking something. I was not looking at what I already have, right? So that is what will really help you. Now, in today's world, there is a lot of apprehensions about the intrusion of technology, right? AIs, people fear that it might take up jobs. And today we're talking about AI, Gen AI. It could be something else a few months down the line. We have no control on that. AI is here to stay and it is inevitable. What we can do is to really apply the 3 A's in a consistent and a conscious manner, because that will enable you to build a mindset, a conscious mindset that will enable you to deal with any situations that life throws at you and not just survive, but thrive. And life will keep throwing such instances at you. It will be full of surprises. So it's a choice that we make. At the end of the day, what we do is all choice. The mindset helps you to make the right choice. Now, there are 2 options that you could do when you are thrown with such instances. Either the easiest thing to do is what? It's just give up, right? Or you have built the right mindset so that you make the right choices and you live up. Thank you.